So we'll start the session. I welcome you all. We are thrilled to have you joined us here for this exciting session, which promises to delve deeper into the GRC landscape and provide valuable insights. So without further ado, we'll start the session right away. Okay, so here goes our topic, which says GRC reimagined with isorobot. Let's look at the agenda. So we'll start with the guest introduction. Moving on to the enterprise GRC landscape, we'll also try to see how the Saudi Arabia Vision 2030 is getting mapped onto it. And then we'll have an introduction to isorobot, knowing isorobot GRC better with a small case study and a testimonial. This won't be a long and monotonous session like any other. We have tried to keep it very short and keeping it insightful at the same time. Okay, moving on. We have our speakers, Mr. Hazim Galal, who is the sales manager of CyberShield. Then we have Mr. Ravi Mukundan, who is a lead consultant in Excelia. And Mark, who, due to an unfortunate event, he will be able to join us today. So moving on. Hazim, over to you.
So thank you so much all for joining the session. I really appreciate the time and efforts. We will not keep it a long session. We will keep it in short to use one of our strategic vendors in our portfolio. We have partnership with isorobot, one of the strategic vendors in our portfolio in regards to the GRC, and we'll give you more in details how isorobot can be one of your also vendors to focus on. So, in regards in terms for the GRC landscape, when you were speaking about the GRC, there is a huge demand into the market, and the market started to know that. If you can jump to the next slide. Yeah. So if you know that nowadays, GRC is one of the hot topics in Saudi because everyone is looking to comply with Saudi compliances like Saudi Central Bank SAMA. They are looking to comply with SADAYA. They are looking to comply with, you can say, National Cybersecurity Authority. They are looking to comply with CST, or previously called CITC. So everyone is looking to participate or to comply with the Saudi compliances that are pushed more and more to be mandated by Saudi government. So as a GRC platform, if you can see the graph, year by year, it's increasing. We are not competing with the other technologies where the market has already got fed of the other technology, but we are speaking about a unique technology that there is a huge demand. I'm seeing there's a huge potential that you guys can focus on. Year over year, there is knowledge that is being transferred to the market that guys, instead of doing it manually, instead of doing it through the services team, let's automate this journey through a GRC tool. So this is why isorobot even came into the picture and have started to sell their GRC tool. Governments, even and financial entities, even enterprises here into the market, they have started to know the basics of governance, the basics of risk, the basics of compliances, audit, and so on. So with isorobot, it's not a normal GRC solution or a GRC tool. It's an enterprise GRC tool where it supports all the organizations to comply, to mitigate the risks, to put everything in a governance way. So it's our job with isorobot, with you guys, with you as an esteemed partners in Saudi, to convey the same to the market that you have to use a GRC tool instead of in normal practice with the services and so on. Believe me, wherever you go, just mention the GRC tool, one of the unique tools that we do have with isorobot. Believe me that the customer will tell you, come, let's hear from you guys. Let's know what you guys are offering. So with isorobot, I am sure that we can do good business with you guys. And part of, if you can go jump to the other slides. Part even for the vision for 2030, everybody in the kingdom, they are trying to comply and to be in a certain position to even to qualify to the vision of Saudi 2030. With isorobot, yes, we can support them. Wherever there is a customer you are interacting with, we can support you maximum. Any sector, you could say health sector, government sector, private sector, semi-government, funds, authorities, wherever you go. Mention about the enterprise risk or the enterprise GRC tool. Believe me, you'll be having a better understanding with us on this session. So I will leave it to Ravi. He'll be taking ownership in today's presentation. Let's keep it brief. We will not take much of your time, guys, let's hope for the best.
Thank you, Hassan, and a very good afternoon to every one of you. Just before I start, I just wanted to take a minute to understand. Out of all the participants, how many are using a GRC tool or have sold or promoted a GRC tool amongst you? You could put it in your chat if you've been introduced to GRC tools and you have actually promoted that across anywhere with your clients. Yeah, anybody? If you've been introduced to GRC tools, you're aware of GRC tools and have promoted it, it would be, I mean, if you could just put that to the on the chat. Fantastic. Yeah. Great, thank you. So I think that makes things a little more easier. I think the GRC is not a new concept for many people. And when we talk about GRC, we are not just limiting ourselves to talk about any governance risk or compliance software, but we are talking about something much bigger, much broader in its covering, right? So typically, what happens is that when you're talking about an enterprise management system, most often, organizations are already using some form of automation or the other, right? So most of the clients that you would be working with, you would have seen they're using either an ERP or an HRMS, for managing their inventory, for managing their sales, so the POS areas, for managing the people, performance management, or competence management, training management, all of those. They would be already using different applications, and they have an intranet for the operational workflows, like applying for leave or accessing certain policies and stuff like that. What happens with this is that there is multiple workflows, multiple applications which often do not talk to each other, right? And what happens with that is a huge amount of siloed working and numerous amounts of redundant processes with duplication of efforts, right? If you're entering something in one particular application, you are bound to have some of that repeated in another application. So that kind of an issue, I think most of the organizations are facing today, primarily because the entire applications have been deployed at different points in time. So as they've matured on that, there is a certain amount of challenge which we face, right? Can we just move on to the next slide? So that is where our application isorobot typically comes in, right? And it focuses on just three key areas, right? Three key areas: people, processes, and technology, which we call the assets, right? So whether it is information security related, whether it is audit related, quality related, or continuity related, or even strategies, isorobot is one single seamless application which covers all the elements or all the departments, all the areas of functioning within an operational business, right? And how does it do that? It's a very simple piece. It is modular in structure. The one good part about isorobot is that it is from the house of Excelia, right? Our parent company is Excelia Ventures. And Excelia Ventures started as a consulting organization based in the Middle East, and about 13 years ago. And over the years, as they were implementing performance improvement measures and initiatives, there was a need for a software which could sustain the improvements that the different certifications and the entire performance improvement programs were delivering for the clients. And that is the genesis actually of isorobot as a software, as an enterprise level software, helping organizations. So one big difference vis-a-vis many other, good applications that one would find, in the process or in the GRC space or in the risk space. One big difference is the usability, because this has been designed by consultants themselves. So the usability, the user-friendly and the slight transitions to being relevant is something which is a big plus with isorobot. What does that mean for an organization? It means, very simply put, better utilization of their resources, right? It's one centralized platform for the entire organization, right? Better utilization of resources, which means better, ROI for the organization. We also provide, a business best practices library. So that makes, implementing something like an ISO standard or a SAMA framework or an NCA framework much, much easier, because the clauses, subclasses, and the measures are already available to be readily implemented and readily audited, readily assessed, readily adhered to within each process. So that makes the work within the within the system much easier. Of course, I touched upon removing duplications and thereby giving a huge amount of benefit for the organization. Can we move to the next slide? This, like I mentioned, in terms of benefit to the organization, is a huge amount of difference in the employee participation and engagement, right? This one single factor itself is a huge, huge benefit for large organizations, right? The communications are much easier, right? The control efficiencies, once it's monitored, once it's adhered to, once it's escalated, the entire efficiency is at a different level. Of course, you need modern and analytical dashboards for a better viewpoint across the organization, and to have take database decisions. And that's something which our application really delivers for our clients, and that you can trust us on that. Okay. Let's move on to the next slide. So what all are the standards which isorobot typically supports? It does right from the different SOX or GDPR kind of compliances, right down to different ISO standards. Let's move on to the next. There are about 37, 38 plus standards which are already supported and inbuilt into the application. So all of these, the entire clauses, subclasses, and even measures, or if you already have them, they're readily implementable into the application. Or if you just want us to have the standard clauses and measures implemented, you can have that readily implemented within the system. So that makes it that much more faster, that much more easier from a change management perspective, which is one of the biggest resistance or biggest reasons why many of these applications and their implementation fails, because the change management sometimes is not that easy, right? Can we move to the next slide? More specific to the KSA, right? The SAMA framework, right? And the NCA framework, again, from a cybersecurity perspective. The clauses, the compliances, the gradings, the 1, 2, 3, 4, what it stands for, all of these things can be calibrated internally within the application on a ready basis. So if you're just wanting to say, okay, I need an application and this needs to have the SAMA terminologies or the SAMA framework. So from a risk management perspective, from a cybersecurity perspective, those clauses and things can be already available to you within the system, right? So that is a big plus, because when people, especially in KSA, are looking for any kind of implementation, these adherences are very, very important. Yeah, can we move on? So let's talk about what our GRC typically tool would do. When we talk governance, right? When we talk about implementing a GRC with any organization, the first thing which we do is to onboard an organization. So, and when we talk about onboarding an organization, We talk about putting up their mission, vision, values, the organization structure, the vendors, the different processes. This part, when you're putting it there and onboarding the entire organization, this aligns all the users and the non-users within an organization to that one single application, one single view of the vision and the mission, right? Once the organization is onboarded, then you need the people who would be working in that system, right? So that's where the human capital or the people management part of the application kicks in. Like I said, this can be as big or as small as your client requires it, right? So if a client is already using an HRMS, we are not duplicating that HRMS. We will take the data from the HRMS, or it can be directly fed on here, and this will be catering only to the risk elements. If you wanted to cater to the competencies, to projects, it can link to competencies and projects. If the client is already using something for that, it can be just for that workflow, just for the job descriptions, just for ensuring process adherences, and the respected queues of work can go to the respective people. Yeah. So that's part of the human capital, the job description, the hierarchy, the workflows to say who's approving, who's submitting, all of those kind of stuff. Once the people are onboarded, you need them to have access to the processes and the policies within each organization. And that's part of our knowledge hub, right? And when we say the knowledge hub, this is part of our document management system. And it's compliant to the access controlled clauses and the data storage clauses as per any of the cybersecurity laws. So all the processes, all the policies, all the notes or white papers and all of those, including vendor documents or even people documents, can be stored and hierarchy-wise access provided basis requirements. So once the processes or the documentation is done, you need the business to roll out. And that's part of the business process management, where you talk about what are the processes, what is the RACI metrics in each process, who's responsible for what, and how the process is flowing, what are the dashboards, what are the reports, what are the KPIs being measured. Then, what are the risks within each of the processes, what are the KRIs within each of the processes, what are the controls implemented or implementable within each of these processes. So that's how the business process management typically works in. Once the processes are running, once the entire framework is moving, you need to then move to the compliance pieces to ensure that, SLA-wise, whether it is internal or whether it is regulatory, which is external, the compliances are tracked to say, okay, these are all things which we are supposed to comply with. These are things which are done. These are things which are not done, and escalations thereof are initiated. So the system automatically initiates the notifications. It initiates emails as well for people if they're not accessing the application, right? So that the entire workflow typically happens that way. When you're talking from a GRC perspective and from a risk perspective, there is also the element of the information security, right? And from an information security perspective, one of the key requirements is the asset management. So understanding each of the assets, what is the levels and what is the kind of risks that we have, what is the asset and when is it due for, when has been purchased, when is it due for renewal, all of those kind of stuff can be managed with the asset management. And this can actually be something which organizations may even take as a standalone application, right? So that's the asset management. The strategy management, again, when we talk about the governance or from an organization-wide perspective, the strategy management is an important component, right? And when I say strategy management, an organization sets a vision, right? It's an English or an Arabic statement. From that statement, you need to create the objectives, right? As to what all are we talking about? What does it mean to say that I'm going to be the best or I'm going to be the largest? What does it mean for the marketing team? What does it mean for the sales team? What does it mean for the service team, right? And from those objectives, you need to have the initiatives or projects coming out. And each of those objectives would have multiple projects or multiple initiatives. Each of those initiatives would have multiple team members, right? And each of those teams or each of those initiatives would have defined measures or KPIs, right? This entire tracking, right from a dashboard to down to the people, is possible to implement using the GRC standard strategy management application, right? So this, from that vision or mission statement down to objectives, down to initiatives, down to team members, down to KPIs, this entire flow is captured within the application itself, right? Then you have the risk management, talking about the risk register, to find out what are the risks, inherent risks, the risk treatment plans, what are the residual risks, and the risk indicators and risk the recovery objectives. All of those can be captured within the risk management and ensure that it is linked to the business process, so that if there are any changes, the entire thing can be linked back into the application. We also have the incident management and the continuity management, right from the business impact analysis, the matrices for business continuity, the incident management, the drills, or conducting incident management for reporting of any incidents from users or non-users. All of that is inbuilt within the application itself. Of course, we also have the internal audit or external audit application, which can be a standalone application or integrated part of the GRC, which talks about right from an audit plan to an audit schedule to request for documentation, request for information, conducting the audit, sharing draft reports, seeking clarifications and corrective action plans, publishing of the actual report in a templatized manner. All of that is automated within the application itself. People don't need to put anything in Excel or manual papers. Yeah, so that's how the application is, and it's modular. So somebody may require, as big as something. Somebody may not require all of these. So some people may require it to be much bigger. So it can be, like I said, much bigger or small, depending on the requirements from each of the clients. Can we move to the next slide? Apart from the GRC modules, we also have the enterprise risk management, audit management, continuity management, cybersecurity management, quality management, document management, assessment and awards, the human health and safety, as well as ESG module, and of course the information and business continuity management module. So these are also available to be offered individually or clubbed as an enterprise-wide application, enterprise solution for any organization. The number of users can be in hundreds. It can be much smaller. That depends entirely on the client and how the entire requirements for the workflows are defined, right? And that's how the thing works. The application supports English and Arabic. So in case somebody wants to see all the screens in Arabic, it can be done immediately. The application can be hosted in, on-premise for any of the clients who may require it, on their servers. We also host it on cloud, hosted in Saudi Arabia itself, so that there are no non-compliances from a regulatory perspective. Of course, globally, we also host it on AWS with multiple redundancy locations, so that data is typically not lost. But specifically for KSA, on-premise and a Saudi-hosted cloud service provider is provided. Yeah. Can we move on to the next slide? Let me quickly talk about a case study, right? And when we implemented for a particular telecom regulatory authority, again in the Middle East, the entire challenges which they had was multiple ISO standards, multiple frameworks being managed, multiple auditors, multiple clauses and measures, and all of this being done manually on Excel, right? And people taking printouts and walking and getting stuff filled in, then entering it back into the system, right? Now, this particular thing was actually adding a lot of additional work to the central team, as well as irritation to the respective process owners. Now, that's an area which our application was actually able to remove completely, because the risk management software that we brought in was actually able to remove many of the legacy applications, and there was a significant amount of time which people were able to save by directly entering data onto the system, so which is a very, very simple user interface. Right, the awareness on the standards, because the document management system was there, people could refer to the processes, to the policies, and to the respective clauses and measures at any given point in time. They could actually do a complete ISO audit on the application itself, because all the respective clauses, documents, measures, everything is available on the system, right? So a huge amount of improvement in terms of not just awareness, but also with regards to the engagement, right? The people actually using the application, because when it is disparate systems, when it is not user-friendly, people don't tend to use it. And that's something which we saw a huge amount of change, which we were able to offer to the client, yeah? The time on internal audits, when you're planning, sending out multiple mails, waiting for replies, sending reminders manually, all of this was removed and the entire system was automated. You can have one bulk email sent to all the users through the application. Notifications are system generated. You can define periodicity for reminders and escalations. So that was also, a big, big plus. Right from templatized audit reports, so you don't need to actually copy it or prepare a report after the audits. As you fill in, the report template is already getting filled, and you can select options from multiple templates to make it interesting and colorful. Yeah. Similar was the benefits which the organization felt from a goals perspective, risk register perspective, and governance perspective. A huge amount of improvement which the organization was able to see. And I'm sure we will be able to showcase the same, to any of your potential clients as well. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah, needless to say, we are rated fairly well on the Gartner quadrants, and we have a pretty good amount of success stories which our clients have actually been sharing, and happy to share more feedback and references in case anybody would require. I'm sure Hazim can help us with that. Yeah, can we move on? That's what I had to share. I'm confident that we were able to cover most of these elements given the paucity of time. Yeah, thank you for your attention, and thank you, Hazim. And back to you, Angira.
Thank you, Hazim. Thank you, Ravi. In a short time, we have covered a lot of things. And of course, this is the first step to like a beautiful partnership that we have begun, and we look forward for many businesses to come. If you have any more doubts or anything, of course, you can reach out to Hazim and the team in Cybersheen. And also, if you wanted to reach out to us, we are also happy to help. Okay, thank you all for joining the session. Thank you.
Thank you all. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you, everybody.